Hi, this is Mr. Ward, and I'm doing a key for you on exit ticket 14.2. And again, I included the 7 properties, what you need. I'll remind you the reflexive property means things are themselves. They just might have different names, like angle XZY is the same as angle YZX. And from those two perspectives, it's still congruent to itself. That is very useful in a lot of proofs. So we're supposed to justify conclusion E. We've been given that FP and GP are angle bisectors. Okay, we've been given that angle 5 is congruent to angle 7 and that 5 is an acute angle. And we've been given that PF is congruent to PG and QG is congruent to FR. So we're supposed to first prove angle QFG is congruent to angle RGF. And since we know that angle 5 and 7 are congruent, and we know that FP and ray GP are bisectors, then we can use multiplication. Okay, we'll demonstrate E. Okay, because the product of, because 2 times, congruent angles. So if you double, let me put it this way, because if you double congruent angles, you get congruent products. And that all flows from the definition of angle bisector and the fact that that means 7 and 8 are congruent and 5 or 6 are congruent. You could have also said addition, by the way, because doubling could also be addition. Adding 2 congruent angles does get you a congruent sum. Or should I say, adding congruent angles to congruent angles gets you a congruent sum. That would be a more precise way of saying it. Now let's look at QP and PR. That's the next conclusion. QP and PR are supposed to be congruent. Well, we know that PG and FP are congruent. We know that QG and FR are congruent. So we can actually demonstrate that QP and RP are congruent because they are the difference between sets of congruent angles. So subtraction is the principle we're going to look for, because the difference between congruent sets of segments is a congruent difference. Okay, so we make congruent differences. Simply because QG minus PG is the same as saying RF minus PF, Okay, and that's what is left over. QP and RP are those differences. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Angle 7 is an acute angle. Okay, so we know angle 5 is congruent to angle 7, and it's been stated that angle 5 is congruent. Okay, if angle 5, is acute. Since it's been stated that angle 5 is acute and that angle 5 is congruent to angle 7, we can use substitution. Okay, substitution because angle 5 is the same as angle 7 and can be swapped into the statement that angle 5 is acute, making it angle 7 is acute. Okay, so substitution does the job for us. Right, the last one, angle FER is congruent to GEQ. So FER and GEQ. Well, FER and angle GEQ are just different ways to name the same angle. So reflexive, because angle FER is the same angle as angle GEQ. EQ, just named using different points along its rays. Okay, that's all we did. We used the same, of course, same vertex or shared endpoint for those rays. We just used different letters, different points along the rays to name it. All right, I hope that helped.